our resident Oregon State fan expert, Connor Johnson, noting here, speaking of chess match, a couple pieces missing for Oregon State. Luke Musgrave is one of the better tight ends in the Pac-12. He's got 11 receptions and a touchdown this year. Trey Lowe is a third down back with a couple catches out of the backfield, long receptions, 25 yards per reception, and 7 carries out with injuries for Oregon State. Folks, leave your comments and questions in the chat. We'll get them to Matt. I may have a thing or two to say about this one as well. Again, Saturday night, unfortunately, on the Pac-12 network. Fortunately for me, I get it for the first time ever. But Matt, are you in good shape?
Well, I have DirecTV, so I am up a creek without a paddle. Maybe I can. There might be a Fubo account I can use from a friend, but I'm not absolutely counting on that. So we'll just see where that goes. But in terms of what our friend Connor mentioned, with Oregon State's injuries. So yeah, Luke Musgrave, that is a particularly big injury. Trey Lowe as well. But here's the thing about Oregon State's offense, and I wonder what Connor has to say about this. We really haven't seen Oregon State dominate with the ground game this season. When Oregon State made the comeback against Fresno State, it was Chance Nolan throwing the ball down the field, playing pitch and catch. So, the Oregon State passing game, I think exceeded expectations or been, better than a lot of people thought. And the ground game hasn't really made as much of an impact. Now, having running backs hurt, Trey Lowe's out, and another running back is also, I believe, Isaiah Taylor, I think, is either unavailable or not at 100%. So, the Oregon State's options might be limited, but I can't escape the thought, and I wonder what Connor has to say about this coming from an Oregon State perspective. If Jonathan Smith, has been holding his cards close to the vest, right? Because you don't want to show everything, and this is such a huge game for both programs that you're going to see Jonathan Smith spring a lot of new looks on the USC defense. And of course, USC's trying to find its footing under Alex Grinch. And we're seeing, we haven't really talked much about the USC defense, but, we've seen the Trojans, have a lot of the same patterns that we witnessed in the first 2 weeks. Now, we didn't get 4 takeaways this game, but USC's red zone defense continuing to make plays after giving up a lot of yards, after allowing an opponent to drive downfield. So the risk about having a good red zone defense is that if you're always allowing the opponent to drive into the red zone, well, what about that game when the opponent finally finishes drives in the red zone? So USC is going to have to figure out a way to not have quite as many red zone possessions. That's going to catch up with the Trojans if they keep tempting fate that way. But in terms of Oregon State, I think Jonathan Smith is sitting on things that he's going to spring up against Alex Grinch. And, Alex Grinch, he coached at Washington State. And when he coached at Washington State, Jonathan Smith was Chris Peterson's offensive coordinator at the University of Washington. And, of course, that was the last time the Pac-12 made the college football playoff in 2016. So, Alex Grinch does have some familiarity with Jonathan Smith. One would think he's going deep into the vault, looking at some Washington concepts under Chris Peterson, and also studying 2021 film on the Beavers. This is not just going to show Lincoln Riley's X and O acumen, which every USC fan trusts and should trust. How does Alex Grinch prepare for this Oregon State offense? Because we know that the USC run fits on defense. I know that Tim Prangley and Rick Anaya on the USC post-game show on Saturdays here at the Voice of College Football, they have pounded that theme. The run fits are terrible, and that's true. They remain bad, and Fresno State was able to run the ball in the second half, even after Jake Haener went out with an injury, and even when, it seemed as though Fresno State was going to throw the ball. No, Fresno State was still able to move the ball on the ground against USC's rush defense. So, I as from a USC perspective, I am worried that Jonathan Smith has some tools in the toolbox. He's going to unearth them for this game, and USC's defense might not be ready for it. I think that Oregon State is going to try to run first and then throw deep on play action off the run to try and get some big shots, because USC's defense, for all its flaws, one good thing it's done this year hasn't allowed the home run on a deep pass over the top. So I think Oregon State's going to emphasize, instead of throwing to set up the run, no, I think Oregon State's going to try to run. Just go right at the weak spot of the USC defense and set up second and short, and then you can do a play fake, go over the top, try to hit your home run ball. So Jonathan Smith, I'm convinced he's trying to align his offense and show some new run concepts that USC hasn't seen before, to get into very favorable down and distance situations and then go to the deep ball. It'll be very interesting to see how Jonathan Smith attacks USC's defense, but there's plenty of reason for concern from a Trojan standpoint.
In addition to 2 wins over the Mountain West, Oregon State coming off a 68-point performance against Montana State this past weekend.